On today's episode, we have a New Zealand legend by the name of Matthew Fairbrother. Not only is he an amazing enduro mountain biker, but his story about how he got to his EWS races is even more awesome. Stay tuned to learn about his experience with enduro racing, getting to the races, and his encounter with animals. Let's get to it. So, thank you, Matthew, for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you on. Hearing anything about bike packing gets my heart racing a little bit because I love bike packing, but also to reading some of the stories about your experiences and just seeing how you wanted to challenge yourself, I was like, I have to talk to you about this. So, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me on.
So, first off, you're in New Zealand. A random question that doesn't have to pertain to anything bike packing or anything, or enduro mountain biking as well. But so, what does the cycling infrastructure look like in New Zealand?
Yeah, it's quite a good scene, and it's quite a developing scene as well. It's definitely picked up heaps over the COVID years, which kind of only just finished a few months ago while I was overseas. Um, so yeah, there's also a local bike park here, so there's lots of kind of youth getting into the sport, and yeah, I think the future's looking quite good here in New Zealand.
Oh, nice. Okay, so a lot of people commute to work and everything like that.
Yeah. There's some decent like in city bike paths, which yeah, quite handy, and there's quite a few more being built. So yeah, there's definitely the means to bike to work safely and all that. Yeah, it's good.
Nice. Sounds awesome. So, I want to give you a second to just give a brief outline of what you did because it's going to sound crazy, but it's freaking awesome. So, will you just tell the listeners about what you did?
Yeah, so basically this season I decided to bike pack the EWS season. So yeah, basically bike pack between each event overseas.
And so, how in total, how many kilometers was that did you bike and how many hours did you end up riding?
Oh, I think I worked this out the other week, but I've kind of forgotten now. I think it was a bit under 4,000 kilometers in total. I think about 75 hours of
Wow.
commuting in
Okay.
total.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's some pretty serious haul. And so, what made you want to do this? Because it's not like racing isn't already hard enough. What made you want to add the element of like biking yourself to the next race?
Um, so it was, yeah, it's a bit of a, yeah, so we'll go all the way back to start here. So, I basically committed to doing the full season with no plan. I'm just a young kid who lives in New Zealand on the other side of the world. I don't know anyone over there. I'm also not old enough to get a car overseas, or do I have the money to hire and pay to get it insured for like 5 months it was. So basically went overseas, no plan, just said I'd wing it and work it out. And it was about a week before the first EWS at Tweed Valley. I bumped into Win Masters, who's quite a well-known Kiwi as well. Um, and got chatting to him and basically kind of said I didn't have a way of getting to the next event in Slovenia. And I think he just mentioned that I should pedal there. And him being like kind of, I guess he's got quite a big name. Most people know who he is. And I kind of look up to him, so I basically said, "Yep, I'll do it," not knowing what I was signing up for. And I guess once I said yes, I was committed to doing that, and I started to look into it, and yeah, worked out that it was going to be quite an effort to get there.
And so, have you done any bike packing before this, or was this like your entry into bike packing?
Yeah, this was going to be the first time I've ever bike packed.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you do any prep before it? Like, did you try to figure out the gear that you were going to be riding and test it a while, or was it kind of just like this? We're just going to kind of wing it there and see how it goes.
Yeah, so I basically had 5 or 6 days to get kitted up. So it was, yeah, there's quite a bit of winging it. But I was staying with Ben, one of the owners of Deviate in Scotland. So he was quite good. And on Sunday afternoon, just as I'd finished the EWS, he came in with a whole bunch of bike packing bags and yeah, camping gear and kind of saved me. So yeah, it wouldn't have happened without him. So it was yeah, super last minute.
And so, do you have a coach? Like, do you have a coach for any of your enduro racing or anything?
Yeah, I've got a coach back here at home.
Okay, so what did he say to the entire thing? Like, no or go for it?
Um, oh, this is a while back now. That I don't know. Like, I guess talking to him and telling him my goals, which I guess was doing well as I could at the EWS, it completely pushes that way back because you kind of can't do both and compete to a high level. So immediately, all the work I'd done leading up to the season was kind of out the window and was kind of all for nothing to a certain point. So I can't imagine he was like super happy, but I think he would have. I think he took it fairly well, and um, yeah, I think he's happy now because it all worked out for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's funny. And so, in a different question, but kind of the same, what did your sponsors say?
Um. Well, I don't have too many sponsors, and at this point in time, it was more of a local level in New Zealand. So
Oh, okay.
to a point, to a point overseas, it wasn't. I didn't have too much to do with them. The one kind of international sponsor I did have was Deviate Cycles. So they're the guys I was kind of talking to it about before I even set off because I was staying with them, and I think they thought I was a bit stupid, but I think they were quite excited to see me give it a go and see if I could pull it off.
And so, did you use the same bike that you used bike packing for the races, or did you have two different ones?
Yeah, I use the exact same bike.
I mean, that's just a testament to their sponsor. Yeah, of course they're pumped about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. The
Did
only
you
thing I changed was the tires.
Oh, for
Yeah,
each race?
yeah, I just put slicks on in between them.
Okay, that's pretty smart. Did you have any mechanicals from using the same bike, like, during any of your races?
Um, yeah, yeah. So Tweed Valley, the first event, final stage. I basically managed to snap the jockey wheels um off somehow, and then chain got tangled up, and it basically just snapped my hanger. Um, so yeah, off the bat, just before I was about to set off, I had a mechanical I had to had to deal with. So um, yeah, I was just telling myself it wasn't a sign and that it didn't mean anything, and that yeah, I was still good to go. So after a bit of a panic attack, I got it sorted and started putting all the gear on my bike, and yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, kind of going back a second to your coach and stuff, you were mentioning that about your goals. So, what were your goals going into the EWS? And then, because you started backpacking, how did those change?
Yeah, so I'm 17, well, was 17 at the time, now 18, and competing under 21. So I still got a few more years in junior. So basically, the whole idea was to come over here, learn as much as I can about the competition and how to go quick here, basically. And also, kind of towards the end of the season, once I start to learn, start pushing hard and going fast. So that was the goal. And then as I got further into the season, and yeah, as I got further into the season, it basically just turned into survival. I just I got tired and just didn't want to fall off and hurt myself, and it was just all about finishing at the end.
I feel like that's every race for me. Every time I just go in way too hot, and then
Yeah,
it's just survival.
yeah.
So, how I've never been to New Zealand, but how's the terrain different in the races over there to the races over here in America? Or I guess North
Uh,
America.
yeah, yeah. Firstly, I think the one big thing which hit me quite hard was the scale of the mountains, and also the stages where we're using. I think here a good stage would be. I think one of the biggest stages I've done would be in Nelson, which is about 8 minutes. That would be considered quite big for me. But then I think some of the events we were pushing like 16-minute stages, so the arm pump and physical fatigue was just insane, and I just had no way to kind of know that was going to come. Um, yeah, now it's on the next level there, and yeah, it's gnarly too.
Yeah, no kidding. And so how enduro racing, I don't really know that much about it, but how many it's in heats, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of split up into, yeah, it's like split up into junior, master, elite, and then also women's of junior, master, and elite as well.
And so how
So
many
yeah,
runs do
there's a
you
few
have to
ways.
do for an event?
Um, so I think most of the time there's about 5 stages, but it does change event to event.
Okay, yeah, wow. I can only imagine how the fatigue and everything would just build up. And then you have to get on your bike and go to the next one.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so how much time was there? Is it there's one every weekend or what's the time span between the races?
So yeah, some of them were 2 weeks and some of them were 1 week. It just depends. Um, I think between the first and second it was 2 weeks, and second to third it was 1 week, and then that was the end of a block. So we had about a month and a half, I think, before we went to it was Canada first, and then the States, and the one between Whistler and Canada to the States that was 1 week, and then the following one in the States again was 1 week, and then all the last ones were also all 1 week together.
Wow.
So yeah, it's fairly tight.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Was there ever a moment when you were biking to an event and you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it?
I mean, like I'm a big kind of believer in using your head to help you get there. So
Mm,
I never considered that as an option. It's like I have to make it. It's just not. I've got no other option. I've got to make it, and that's it. Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. That's a great mentality to have because it doesn't set you up for failure. It's like do or die kind of. And yeah, I
yeah,
respect that.
yeah, yeah, somewhat.
And so when you were doing this, did you ever take any like tracking device or was it kind of like, hey, I don't know, like my mom is expecting me here by this day. If I'm not there, someone's going to come looking for me?
Yeah, so I was just using my phone to kind of, yeah, text my mum and dad back and forth saying, "I am going here today," and yeah, they'd check on me quite a bit, and I think they were staying up most nights to, yeah, see where I was because of course it's like the day over there is night in New Zealand, so
Hmm.
yeah, I think they had quite a few sleepless nights just to make sure that I was still doing okay.
Now, what did they think about this whole thing, about you bike packing to every race?
Um, well, I think when I first explained it to them, I think they thought I was a bit stupid, and it was another bad idea I'd come up with. And I still think they think it's stupid, but I think they're quite happy with how it all worked out for me because yeah, I think in the end it kind of paid off. Yeah, so yeah, mixed feelings I think for them.
And so, how do you think it paid off for you in the end? Because I know that
Um,
you're got covered by Pink Bike and all that stuff, which is so rad. But how else would you think that it paid off?
yeah, well, I think out of the whole thing, it's just all the connections I managed to get. Also, I managed to get to Canada and the USA because of it, which wasn't going to happen before. Um, and yeah, I think I met so many amazing people and connected to so many people just because of this. And yeah, like we wouldn't be here today talking if it wasn't wasn't for that. So
Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
point.
like so many things have come out of that. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's so sweet. It's so awesome that just an idea can, for one, just be a good challenge for you, but for two, create an adventure and allow you to travel and see things, but also you never know what's going to come of it. And I always talk about this with all my guests, but like the ripple effect, you never know what you do, how it's going to impact someone. And it's so awesome that it turned out the way it did for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So to touch on the whole bike packing things, like to get into your day by day and your setup and everything, what did your setup look like and how did it change along the way? Or did it change along the way?
Um, yeah. So to begin with, I had no choice of what gear I had essentially, as I wasn't the one, yeah, buying it. So I took what I could get. It ended up being some out kit bike bags. So it was a bar bag, a saddle bag, a top tube bag, and then another top tube bag, which kind of hooked up against my seat post. So I think altogether that would have been about 25 liters of space. And in there, I had a cooking set, sleeping bag, tent, um, power bank. So I had a solid power power bank, which I was using to charge my phone and all that. And then all my clothes and stuff. So yeah, just the essentials basically. And I quickly ended up there. I didn't have enough space for all my stuff, so had to basically pass on my spare stuff to someone else in the pits. So just went asking, yeah, just to ask to see if anyone had space to take a bag. So yeah, they ended up being quite easy. Um, yeah, lots of people are willing to help, so that was good. And then like mid season, I went to yeah, I ended up getting some new bags mid season, and it was basically the same setup, but it was just a bit more sturdy as the old setup had kind of worn out and started to get a bit flimsy. But yeah, I've basically stuck with that same setup, just a bar bag and saddle bag and then a top tube feed bag. That's
Yeah,
worked
when you
out for
don't
me.
have a lot of options, it kind of helps make your decision for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it keeps it
It,
simple.
yeah, definitely. And so when you got to the races, what did that process look like in like would you try to charge your charging blocks and everything when you were doing the races and stuff or like what did that whole process look like as soon as you rolled up to the race?
Yeah, so basically, I'd turn up, I would chuck all the bags off my bike and start changing my tyres. So that takes about 30 minutes. And then, yeah, it's just a bit of a check over of the bike, see if there's any wear or damage. And it was good all season. Didn't have any issues there. And then it's just kind of on to sleeping. I was looking at the schedule as well to work out what time I've got to wake up in the morning because most of the time I was getting there on Thursday, the day before the whole weekend kind of kicked off. So yeah, had a quick look at the schedule and worked out what time I needed to be up in the morning so I don't oversleep.
So you would you camp there as well or would you like sleep in a hotel at the races?
Um, yeah, I had accommodation for yeah, basically all the events, and that was either just organising an Airbnb with a few other people, or just a few times I got offered a spare bed they had. So yeah, it all worked out most of the time.
Yeah, that's nice. It's always nice to be able to take a shower and recharge and just refuel and everything and it makes you feel
Yeah,
new again.
yeah, it's a big help.
Yeah, definitely. And so I want to get into some of the stories that I've read from some of your interviews and everything like that, but I find it crazy and interesting as well. But so what was it like when you were biking in the negative degree weather?
Well, yeah, it wasn't much fun. Yeah, to put it simply, I kind of I mean, it gets cold here in New Zealand. Where I live, it doesn't often go below minus or negative. And kind of when it does, you don't go outside just because it's super cold for me. Like, you're not used to it, and there's kind of no point going out then, because it's going to be warmer another day. So, also at the same time, like just a couple months ago, it was like 30. It was super hot and way hotter than I was used to. So, I all the gear I had wasn't for cold conditions. So I stitched myself up there, and I mean it's a lack of organising and all that, but yeah. So I ended up leaving Switzerland and the Alps, um, and that night I was looking at the weather, and it was meant to hit -2, I think, and I knew that was way too cold for the gear I had. I had a sleeping bag, which I think the comfort zone was 7. Um, so yeah, it's yeah, that wouldn't be fun. So I made the decision to just bike all night and not stop at all. So yeah, I just competed in EWS and biked for another 20 hours after that. It
And
was a big
so,
shift.
yeah, I read that you pretty much used the sleeping bag as like a winter jacket.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I had a knife and I just cut leg and arm holes in the sleeping bag and slid into it, and it worked quite well. It was honestly way too hot, and I was sweating heaps, but I think that was better than yeah turning to ice or whatever.
Yeah, but hey, you're not cold.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I had to put that in the bin by the end of it because I'd lost lots of stuffing.
I was gonna ask if you replaced it or you just duct taped the holes that you cut and just kept going
Nah, I
on,
think
but
yeah, it was quite an empty sleeping bag by the end of it. Yeah, it was looking a
I
bit
can only
sad.
imagine. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's using what you have, so that's pretty cool. It's like not only was it bike packing to the races, but it sounds like it turned kind of into like Man versus Wild or Survivor Man or something like that.
yeah, yeah. It felt like that was a bit of a survival stuff going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. And so what was it like for you biking through the night?
Um. Yeah. It's I get quite scared of it to be honest. Like kind of on the other side of the world in the big mountains with only a small head torch to kind of light the way. So I've just got a small beam ahead of me, and I'm just the only company I've got is the darkness, and it's yeah, yeah. It's
It's an
not the nicest
intimidating
place
place
to
to
be.
be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you get quite lonely as well because yeah, well, it's 10 hours of darkness just by yourself, and yeah, you can get in some dark places mentally.
And so how did you overcome that? How did you overcome the loneliness and like the dark places mentally?
Yeah, kind of touching on what I said before, like the only option I have is to get there, so I just need to get going, and I just can't afford to stop. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my
you
only
just turned it
option.
into kind of like a not an inspiration, but kind of a well, I guess it would be. You kind of turned it into an inspiration to hurry up and get there versus
Yeah, I've
like
just got to
sulking.
get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
definitely.
and I think by this point, it's it always comes in waves. There's hard times, and then there's times where you're having, I don't know, you're just having quite a bit of fun just out of nothing. It's just a good time, and yeah. So and like when that happens, you kind of forget about the hard times you've had before. So it only yeah, it's quite small in the big picture. You just got to keep pedaling, and yeah, it's as simple as it is.
Yep. Pedal after pedal, and then you eventually look back and you're like, oh, actually, I've covered a lot of distance where that wasn't that bad, and then you just keep
Yeah,
going.
it's kind of weird. Like the nighttime kind of all fades into one because I guess it all looks the exact same. You can't see anything, and yeah, I guess when you're kind of in those bad states, your mind just fades away slightly, and it turns into day, and then you're like, oh, it's daytime. I'm awake now. It feels like you started again. That's always a good boost. Yeah, when the sun comes up.
Yeah, definitely. And so for me, the biggest issue I've have with my riding, especially when I want to do like long distances and stuff, is the nighttime. Like riding at night, riding at night is for one, it's intimidating, but for two, I feel like that's when my mind is always like heightened and it's like I always pay attention to my body way more. So it's like my legs hurt. I really focus on that. Like my butt hurts from being on the saddle so long. Like the hairs on my legs hurt or like something weird like that. But I feel like in the darkness, when that's all you have to focus on, it's just heightened to the extent. So it's really easy to like give up and quit at that point. So yeah, if getting through that, what's the farthest you've ridden before doing some of these rides?
Oh, that's oh, I don't know. Maybe maybe it would be 290. I think off the top of my
290K.
head. Yeah, but
Okay.
that was also 10,000 meters climbing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a serious day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's still impressive. So you kind of know what to expect out of your body.
yeah, somewhat. So each year, like only one time I do a big mission just to see what I can do. So that would have been the year that would have been 2021.
Oh,
I did
okay.
that one. So yeah,
And so where did you
I
do that
mean
one at?
yeah, that was just yeah, at my local hill. I just climbed that until I hit 10,000 meters.
Oh, dang, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
wild.
on the mountain bike as well. So and then going down single and double blacks just to make it exciting.
And so how tall is Everest in meters?
That's 8848.
Oh, okay, so you already Everested.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, then dude, you're good. No worries.
yeah,
Yeah, you can do it.
yeah.
You can
All
do
sorted
anything.
out. Yeah,
And then especially do it and you did it on single track?
Yeah, so not biking up, but biking down.
Okay. Man,
Yeah,
that's insane.
we don't have too many good like climbs here, so it's
It's
just
just more
winching your way up,
gradual.
and then yeah,
Gotcha, that makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, that's pretty insane to do 10,000 meters and then to ride down on single track. Were you noticing yourself, like, getting kinda like, making hairy decisions towards the end of it? Like,
So
get a little bit too lenient here.
I think for me, it kind of keeps me awake. So I'd done another one when I was 15. It took me 26 hours in total to do that. But what I found, this wasn't mountain biking. So what I found when I was going down the hill, just on the tar seal, I was falling asleep on my bike. So I guess my eyes would shut themselves, and then I'd fall asleep, and then I'd just jolt while I'm still on the bike and wake myself up. Um, so I think for the last two laps, I had a few close calls, and that's kind of scarred me in a way. So I don't think I'd ever do one again on the tar seal that would take over 20 hours. So for me, the only option to do it again was on a mountain bike and doing it on a mountain bike descent where it's a bit more exciting and you've got to stay awake.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like that's the thing, it's, like, so repetitive to do that. So to give you any level of, like, just to make your brain work a little bit like you were saying, will make it more intriguing because the people that go up on the road and just do it back and forth on the same road, I would never bike on that road ever again. There's no need for it. I would burn that road down if I could. Like, it's so
Yeah, yeah,
draining just to
exactly.
do that.
I hate it now.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
I bet.
only well, I was 15 when I did that, and I've only done it 5 times since, and it's like quite close to where all my local spots are. So
Oh, nice,
yeah,
okay.
I do my best to avoid it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I would too. And so leading up, since we're kinda on the topic, but, like, what does your training look like for these EWS races?
Yeah, so it's yeah, leading up to it, it's lots of gym work and interval work, and it's also combining interval work with descending. So basically doing an interval and then immediately going into a descent just to because in the EWS there's lots of pebbly sections and then you go into technical downhill. So it's conditioning my body to that to function when I'm tired and being able to focus on the downhill when I'm fatigued and tired. So yeah, that's
And
a big
so
part of it.
yeah, and so how what would you say to someone if they're like, "Hey, I wanna get better at descending," what would you recommend to them to get better at?
Um, I think I think go to the gym and work on your upper body and chest and arms and shoulders. I think that's a huge part of it. And yeah, being able to push with your upper body helps so much going down the hill. And it's one of the big changes I noticed when I started pushing that side of it.
And so how can you explain how it helps you just to be able to push into it?
Yeah, just to be able to deal with the impacts, push harder into corners, pull up harder on jumps, and yeah, there's so many forces involved on the bike, and yeah, it's a huge help. Also with stability, like when you hit a bump and it knocks you sideways, it's yeah, you need that upper body to kind of pull yourself back in and hold you up.
Yeah, definitely, that makes sense. And so, I guess getting back to bike packing again, and going through the night, did you have any encounters with animals? One guy I interviewed, Chris Thorpe, he was doing a, like, 250-mile race, and he had an encounter with a black bear. So I'm wondering if you had any crazy encounters.
Um, yeah, so I've had quite a few animal encounters. Only one of them. Oh, well, each block I've had a bird incident. Um, so I guess we can start with the first one. I would have been about 20 hours, and I just got into the Netherlands, and I was biking to I think Cologne in Germany. I'm off the top of my head, and I think it's always at about sunset, when it's kind of getting dark and the shadows are setting in. And often if I'm super tired, I'll start to hallucinate at that time of day, and I'll just see these animals, which are nice animals. They're all fluffy and Like I'm not scared of them, and I know it's a hallucination, and I've had it a few times, so it's nothing I'm too concerned about. It's just a bit of a warning that I'm getting tired. But yeah, so I'm hallucinating. That's all good, and then I get hit in the face by a bird, and at first, yeah, I don't think anything of it because I know I'm hallucinating, and I think, oh, it's just a hallucination. But it's quite new to me. Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny, and I just continue on with my evening, and it did hurt quite a bit, but so did all the other parts of my body, so I forgot about it. And then it wasn't until the morning when I wake up, and when I do these things, I completely forget about half of my day. So I wake up in the morning, I'm just looking at my phone. I look at my photos, and there's this photo of my face covered in blood. And then I like
Dang.
kind of wipe my face down, and there's just all this blood like going down my face. And yeah, I got hit by a bird quite hard, and I didn't even know. Yeah, if I didn't have that
That's
photo,
wild.
I wouldn't have known what the heck just happened.
Yeah, that's insane. That's crazy because
Yeah,
those doing those really long days in the bike, I feel like you kind of just zone out. And so unless something was like, "Oh, I almost crashed," like that's a memorable moment, but when everything's going according to plan, those kind of just get
yeah,
pushed out of your brain.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't think anything of it because I just yeah, pass it off as a hallucination, which is fairly normal for me. Um, yeah, it was quite a shock.
I bet I've never had a hallucination hit me, so that's pretty that's pretty wild.
Yeah, they're quite fun, but yeah, it's like yeah, it's a bit of a sign to call it quits soon, though. You don't want to push too far beyond that.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell like when I start to hallucinate, it's like either I'm getting extremely tired or I'm kind of pushing the limits on my fuel and hydration, which is the tired aspect. That one's not okay, but like that's a little bit more manageable. But the when you're dehydrated and lacking fuel, those are the ones where it's like, ooh, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, yeah, you can start to feel that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it hits you hard.
yeah, absolutely, and it's hard to get out of that hole more than the sleep.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that takes quite a big effect over like the next few days as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The recovery is even more brutal from that aspect. And I feel like your digestion system is just kind of shot too. So then even food doesn't feel right to you and all that stuff. It's a bad cave to get into.
Yeah, yeah, you wanna do your best to avoid that hole.
Yeah, definitely. And so what speaking about fuel, what was your fuel on this trip? Is there anything that was just like your go-to consistent that you kept throughout the entire ride?
Yeah, so I had a few motivators for what I was eating, and I think the number one limiting factor was I was on my bike by myself, and I didn't want to leave my bike outside a shop in the city. So the only places I was going to fuel up were gas stations just in the middle of nowhere, off the side of a highway, where it would be a bit of an inconvenience to steal a bike. So yeah, I was limited to gas station food the whole time, and that just consisted of lollies, um, like potato chips and like juice and Coke and yeah, whatever you can find there. So it wasn't the nicest diet, but honestly, I think it's what works for me because I was doing some big days, and I think eating pure sugar like lollies and fizzy and yeah, Coke and all that. I think that's the only way to kind of keep up with the energy needs that you have. Like eating actual food just fills up your stomach too much, and you don't have enough space to keep eating and yeah, meet those energy levels.
And so what does your diet look like normally without like if you were just flying to these races, so to speak, what would your diet look like?
So I don't eat any meat. I'm veggie, so um, yeah, no meat to start with. I think in the morning I'd go for toast. At lunch some kind of sandwich, and then dinner some pasta, some veggies and stuff in it. I think like when you're on the move like that, it keeps it quite simple. It's yeah, you don't need much to make any of those when you're on the move. Like even just in a van, like you don't want to be yeah, like a van would be an awesome setup, but you don't want to be cooking anything complicated. So yeah, I'd
Yeah,
be happy to
definitely.
stick with those options all year if I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, do you think that changing your diet like that affected your racing, or do you think it maybe benefited it somehow?
Well, that's a tough question because I think I needed to have that dart no matter what. So I've never kind of thought of it that way. Um, and I don't think I would have been able to make it to the events without a diet similar to that. So I would say it was the best thing for me. So maybe it was also the best thing for the EWS as well because I got to those events feeling the best I could with what I had. But if I wasn't biking there, I it wouldn't be the best diet. So it's kind
But
of
it'd be
two
the
sides
most
to it.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's quite hard to maintain, and you've got to put quite a bit of thought into the energy levels because there's highs and lows with it. So you've got to constantly be eating and making sure you're keeping up to those energy levels and make sure they don't fall down below what you want them to. 'Cause yeah, you can have some big blowouts with if you're just eating sugar.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. I feel like the worst times I've felt on a bike from nutrition aspect is when I get too much sugar and not enough like real food, like using just the goo gels or I mean just like Stroop waffles and not throwing in like a banana or bread or like anything that actually has substance, and then it just
Yeah,
flips your stomach upside down, and it's just that's probably the worst place to be is when your stomach turns upside down, and then
yeah,
you're screwed.
yeah. And like, I'm fairly good at eating. I can kind of just shove whatever into my body, but I definitely had a few times where I was like vomiting and just have to empty my stomach just because it was too much. And the hard thing is like once you do that, you've just got to keep eating and keep doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, like you got to fill that void back, and then often again that leads to being sick. So
yeah, you
it's
got to try to right the
yeah,
ship,
it's
but
yeah, it's just you're just fighting against yourself the whole time, and it's always a battle,
yeah,
and there's not much
definitely.
you can do about it when you're in that situation. So
Yeah, and your
yeah,
stomach's going to win every single time.
yeah, it does what it wants. It's
Yeah,
kind of something your mind can't overpower.
exactly. You can go into it with I've gone into like rides and races and stuff and be like, okay, I have my diet completely dialed in, but for X reason, my stomach just did not want to do it that day. So it's like, well, what can you do? You have to kind of change up the game plan. But sometimes that's just way too late. And then it's just like you were saying, getting sick, having to try to right the ship, still getting sick. And then eventually you'll be somewhat okay. But yeah, it's a brutal thing to figure out sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I did find with my stomach is that it was perfectly fine beginning of the season, like with sugar and kind of only having eating sugar in these on these big days. But by the end of it, it just didn't want to deal with sugar, and it was getting quite bad near the end of the season. Um, it just wanted actual food. So
Did you have
yeah,
to do a detox once you got done with all of this?
I did. I'm doing a bit of a taper,
Yeah, that's
so
smart.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to shock the system.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you get
Yeah,
so dependent on that stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've still got a few local events at home, so I don't want to. I guess that's what my body's used to, and it's what it's used to using as fuel. So I'm slowly gonna, yeah, I'm gonna keep that up for now, but slowly turn it off as these events fade away that I've got coming up.
Smart. And so this might be a dumb question, but from New Zealand to North America, what are some differences in the food that you see from like gas station food?
Um, Gas station food. I think the sizes of most stuff is a lot bigger.
Okay.
So like an XL there, which for me, I would never complain of that when I was, yeah, that was awesome for me. Um, I don't think there's not too much of a change. I don't think. Um, yeah, I mean, there's some new. There's not many new foods, but there's like new lollies and maybe
Oh,
some
okay.
new. new flavors of things, but it's all mostly the same.
Oh, okay, got you. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think most of our stuff in New Zealand is imported, so there's not many like New Zealand only foods you'd find in the gas station. It's all just the classic stuff.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So with the enduro racing, how what were the final placement that you got in the series after bike packing to every race?
I got 13th in the end, which I'm stoked about, but also slightly bummed about because I was sitting in the top 10 just before the final event. And yeah, had a big blowout and just went a bit too slow that day, and yeah, got pushed back to 13th. But I think that's still quite a big positive for my first year in juniors.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Being your first year, you literally rode more than any other competitor, I'm sure. So,
Yeah,
and you bike to the races. You are probably really fatigued once you showed up to the race, and you
yeah,
still killed
insanely
it and got
fatigued.
13th. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would have been quite a sweet finish though to have like a single digit number next to my name. But yeah, next year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
so, what are you planning on bike packing again next year, or does the EWS change countries?
Yeah, I mean, it's going all over the place next year. So it starts in Tasmania, which is fairly close to New Zealand, but it's still a 5 hour flight, I think. Yeah, there's nothing close to New Zealand. There's yeah, yeah, we're just a small island. And then yeah, he's back over to Italy for a few months, and then we finish off in Whistler, Canada. That'll be a good finish. And yeah, answer that question. I'll be doing the same thing next year. I'll be bike packing in between them all.
Oh, nice. Okay, so how are you going to change? Like, is there anything that you're going to change or do differently, or are you going to plan this time, or are you still going to wing it? Because I mean, I've only known you for probably 45 minutes, but I really like the vibe of winging it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna wing it again. But in saying that,
Yeah.
I winged it this year, and I think I did it perfectly. Other than the last time when I didn't have warm enough gear, so that I think that's the only mistake I'd fix. Other than that, yeah, there's not much I'd change. I think there's even though I'm slightly winging it, there's a lot more planning and organizing that goes into it than I think anyone does see. That's just yeah, it's educated guessing most of the time, but yeah, it works out.
Yeah, definitely. So, uh, explain some of the planning that you're discussing.
Yeah, I think the big one is working out how to get like A to B, how I'm physically going to get there, and for that I've been using Komoot, which has been quite comfortable to use. I just completely followed that on the first league, but there's a few had a few hiccups using that, so there's quite a bit of examining Komoot to see where it's planning on taking me. And sometimes it takes you on highways, which maybe it didn't pick up as highways. So yeah, you've got to be quite alert with with where you're going, I think, and especially not knowing how those places work that well. Yeah, it takes quite a bit of looking into.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in North Carolina. I don't know if you know where that is, but I biked from Raleigh, North Carolina to Boone, and it's like 3/4 of the state. And so I've lived in Boone my entire life, except for like 6 months here and there. But I've driven these roads hundreds of times. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bike all the way from Raleigh all the way to Boone. And I was like, I'll just use the GPS and I'll try to find the most cycling friendly route possible. And yeah, it put me on a few highways. And I was like, what in the heck is going on? Like, this is, for one, not safe. For two, I think it's illegal to bike on a highway. And so it was just
Yeah,
super sketch. So yeah, that's a very important part. You definitely need to
yeah,
plan those.
yeah, for sure. And there's a few times that happened, and looking at the map, and there's like no other way unless I bike about 50k back, 50k to the side, and then continue on. So in those cases, I just like hop the fence off the side of the highway and like push along like farmers' fields. for
Oh,
like
dang, okay, that's
10K,
interesting.
and I got there. So that was going into Slovenia, that one, and that was just, yeah, I didn't think I had any other option. Like, I don't think I would have made it if I stayed on the highway, and like biking. Yeah, I think it worked out to be about 95K. That just wasn't an option either. I did not feel like doing that.
The whole thing was
So,
95K? Like, to the
the detour.
Oh, dang, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And so how
So,
long was the total day before that detour?
that would have been, I think, 12 hours at that point.
Dang, so that added on, what, another 3, 4
Yeah,
hours?
that would have been about 4 hours if I decided to do the detour. But I just decided to walk alongside of the highway, just
Okay.
in fields, and I think it was a cornfield and a bunch of other fields I was in.
Dang. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty intense.
like equally as scared because I don't want to mess with any farmers, and I can't
Yeah.
speak. That would have been, I think that would have been German speaking there, which I only know how to say hi, thanks, and bye. So yeah, I just don't want to get caught up in in an argument there.
Yeah, just keep saying hi and bye, and they'll get the picture.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild. And so, just randomly, but did you have any other crazy encounters or anything while you were on this trip?
Um, I think in the USA, I had a bit of a encounter with a few animals one night. Um, so I was talking to some people I knew in Whistler, Canada, on the east coast about the animals on the west coast because I'm quite new to this whole thing. I don't know what animals live where, and but they basically told me that I'll be fine camping out and there's nothing to be concerned about. Um, so I flew over there, did a big pedal the first day, then slept just off the side of the bike path it was. And that night, yeah, I just set up the tent and that was it. My bike was maybe about 10 meters to the side of me. In the middle of the night, I heard like the sound of it was like a a potato chip bag. The sound of that like being messed with, and a bear had like gotten into all my food.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was a black bear. But
And
like
where were
I
you
think
at?
this would have been this was like on the Canada US border outside of Maine,
Oh, dang, okay, yeah.
so on the west coast. Um, so yeah, that sent me into quite a panic, just seeing a big black bear. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like kind of, I like panicked and kind of quickly got out of my bivvy just to so I could escape if I needed to, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but that kind of scared the bear, and it was gone, but it had gotten into all my food,
Dang, that is wild. Yeah, because up
and
in
then
Maine, like where I'm at, you'll see bears every once in a while, but there's not usually, like, you kinda have to be looking for them to find them. But up in Maine where it's and, like, Vermont and all that stuff where it kind of gets more remote the closer to Canada it goes, like, the bears are pretty wild up there. And then, like, if you go out west and you go to, like, Montana or Idaho or whatever, there's, like, mountain lions and brown bears and stuff, and it's like there's
yeah.
signs everywhere that says, like, "Carry bear spray."
Yeah, I got stitched up there. Like I wasn't too happy about the suggestion that I'd be fine. There was nothing to be to be scared of.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Dang, yeah, that is
yeah.
wild.
But then, yeah, that was quite a sleepless night. And then, yeah, I could hear all these animals, and I saw a moose that night, and just so many deer just walking about and kind of coming up to me to see what I was. Yes, they
That
could
is so
smell me.
crazy. What time in the or, like, at night, what did that encounter happen?
That would have been about 2 a.m., and I think I went to bed 11 p.m. So I got a few hours of sleep until that happened, and then it was just awake.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving at 4 a.m. because I accepted that I wasn't going to sleep.
Yeah, forget that, just get out of there and keep rolling.
Yeah, yeah. I just waited until I could see like a glimpse of sunlight, and then I was gone.
Yeah, that is wild. That is not the type of waking up that you want, but
You know?
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
And so you kinda touched on that you're gonna be bike packing the races next year, but what other adventures do you have planned for yourself?
Um, I'm not too sure at this stage. I kind of just wing it with all the things I do. I kind of just decide maybe the week before. I
That's
just get
awesome.
a I just get like a blast of motivation out of nowhere, and then I'll come up with an idea, and then I'll commit to it, and then just get into it. Yeah, I don't ever have any kind of lead up to anything. So I think next year will be the organised I'll ever be for something like that.
So now that you said that, when you were doing the 10,000 meters climbing, how long before did you get the inspiration to do that?
So with that one, we were going. We had 48 hours. They just announced we had 48 hours until we were going into lockdown for COVID. So I had maybe about 20 hours of organising until I did it. Yeah,
That is mad.
and then I finished it like yeah. I think I went. I think I like finished basically bang on when we went into lockdown, and yeah.
That is
So
so
it
crazy.
wasn't.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. That was quite tight time wise.
Yeah, no kidding. And so
So
how
I
did you
thought I might
feel
as
after that? Oh, go ahead.
um. Oh yeah, I was gonna say I thought I might as well get the most biking I could before we went into
Yeah.
lockdown. So that was kind of the motivation there.
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding. And so how did you feel after doing that? Were you just completely depleted or like not as
um,
bad as you thought?
I didn't feel that bad. I mean, you obviously feel quite tired, but I think more so like it's like sleep tired, kind of like I wanted to sleep, but my legs didn't feel that bad. I can kind of go, my legs can kind of go as long as they want if I feel good, so that wasn't an issue. But I think that those efforts take more of a long term effect, as in you just lose all your power, and yeah, if you go to put down some power, there's just you can feel the fatigue.
Yeah, it
So
definitely stretches out that day and makes it way longer than you
yeah,
probably wanted it to be.
yeah, for sure. Like I think if you're gonna do efforts like that, you've got to put aside a month to bounce back to where you were before.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Matthew, for being on the podcast. You are now turning into one of my spirit animals. I love the just go with it, get up and do it vibe. And that's pretty sick. So thank you for being on the podcast. And I'd love to have you on again.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been good.